Me, 25 female, with my fiance, 25 male, together 5 years. I cheated and I'm not sure how to handle his response. I recognize that what I did was wrong, and I make no attempt to deny or justify it. I feel terrible about it, and I will do all in my power to make it right. So, although I realize that calling me names is okay, I'm actually searching for suggestions on what to do next. I went on a vacation to see my sister at her school quite early in our relationship, 6 weeks to be precise. The second night there, we went to a big party, and I was dancing and drinking, and one man in particular was hitting on me, and as the night progressed, I began flirting back. I'm not going to make excuses. I was drinking but not intoxicated, and he didn't take advantage of me. I just made a terrible decision and ended up accompanying him back to his room. I knew it was wrong the instant it began, and I ended up weeping as I laid there. I got up and went as soon as he finished. I still don't know his last name. My sister was so inebriated that she went home with a friend, and she had no idea I hadn't spent the night at her house since I arrived before she did. I returned home filled with remorse, and even though I knew it would lose me my new boyfriend, I was going to tell him and ask him to forgive me. When I visit him the following day, he is already upset. He did not get the job offer he expected, and he is quite down. I determined not to contribute to his melancholy, so I spent the whole day trying to cheer him up and be a comfort to him. Then the next time I meet him, he is overjoyed because he says I was able to make him forget about how his life was at the time, which I didn't tell him about. Yes, I was wrong both times, but I was young, immature, and afraid. After those 2 occasions, we were getting along so well that I simply told myself that nobody except myself and the other man knew anything had occurred, so why destroy a good thing when I knew I'd never do it again and I'd never see or hear from this other person again? Let's fast forward to 2 months ago. We've been together for years, and in fact, we've been together longer than any of our friends have been with their significant others. We adore each other and share a home. He proposes marriage to me. I was ecstatic and, of course, said yes. We notified our relatives and friends, and everyone was delighted for us. But 2 days after he asks, I'm overcome with remorse. I phoned in sick to work because I was unable to function and spent the whole morning weeping on the sofa. I was a liar and a cheat, and I had duped my boyfriend into proposing when, in reality, if he had known about it from the start, he would have probably ended the relationship. I knew I couldn't go on living like that for the rest of my life, and resolved that no matter how he was feeling, I had to tell him. The second significant aspect of this is that I am his first and only sexual partner. He knew I had been with another person before we met, but it didn't upset him, or so I believed. When he gets home, he notices that I'm a shambles and asks what's wrong. When I inform him, he is naturally distraught and emotional. I tell him that I will go to any length to prove to him that I have never done anything like that since, and that I would never do anything like that in the future. I offer to let him go through my tablet, phone, Facebook, or anything else. But he says it's not required since he doesn't want us to live like that. He said that he needed some alone time to ponder and that he would sleep on the sofa. I informed him that I would give him as much time as he needed, but that I would be the one sleeping on the sofa, not him. He is silent the following morning, but he shows no ill will toward me. I just inquired whether he was all right since I didn't want to delve into his thoughts. He informed me that he was, of course, wounded and unhappy. He said that the most difficult aspect for him was the time period since he doesn't know if being unhappy is legitimate or ridiculous at this point in time. I told him he had every right to be unhappy, and we both went to work. After a week, he seemed to be getting better by the day, to the point where we both went out to celebrate our engagement with one of his buddies. Everything was well until Wednesday, when he informed me that he would be returning from work quite late. This doesn't concern me since it's a very common occurrence. Once they start on a job, they can't stop until it's finished, and there have been occasions when it's taken 16 hours. So I spent the evening catching up on some work I had fallen behind on, watching a movie I knew he wouldn't like, and then going to bed. When I awoke the following morning, he was still not there. I texted him to see where he was. He just answered, "I'm on my way home." We passed each other on the street on our way to work. When I phoned him, he just states that he stayed later than intended and was heading home to rest. Okay, this isn't usual, but he did warn me, and he wasn't acting strange or suspicious, so I simply went about my business. When I get home, he is sitting in the living room, waiting for me. To cut a long tale short, he informed me that he spent the night before with Tracy, a married lady from his workplace. I just passed out on my chair. He then goes on to say that this was a one-time occurrence, that she is in an open marriage, that he has no emotions for her, and that she has no affections for him. However, he said that he was utterly immobilized with rage and jealousy over my having slept with this other person, as well as my past relationship. He said that he knew he was wrong, but he felt compelled to be with someone else just once so he wouldn't be so worried about me being with other people, despite the fact that he had only been with me. Of course, I began sobbing, and then I became enraged and began shouting at him. Then he stops me and says, "Why am I shouting at him? I cheated first, and when he found out, he never shouted at me," which is true. He says he regrets the action, feels like he cheapened himself in the process, but that although he is sad it has upset me, he says that even though it was wrong, and he knows it was wrong, he says he's sorry but felt like it was something he had to do. He now wants us to go on as if nothing had occurred. I'm at a loss on what to do next. I'd be the greatest hypocrite in the world if I left him, but I'm so upset that I'm not sure where we go from here. Update. This has been a very difficult week. In fact, this has wrecked what is generally my favorite time of year. Several folks have p.mme. asking for an update, but I've been in a bit of a haze and honestly didn't know what to write. I'll start by saying that we are still together. We decided to postpone alerting people about our wedding date, but for the time being, we are still together and engaged to be married. He has agreed to accompany me to couples therapy. We won't be able to start until the end of next month, but we've already scheduled an appointment, and his insurance will cover his share of the fee. I'm still checking on mine, but we can pay out of pocket if necessary. We've had numerous lengthy talks that have resulted in a lot of tears, mainly on my part, and one full-fledged mental breakdown on his part. I'm not going to lie. After sharing this the previous time, some people said they felt she was a fictitious character and he was just saying this to make me feel awful. So during one of our talks, I finally had the guts to ask him if he was just saying this to make me feel bad. Regrettably, he persisted in claiming that this occurred and how terrible he felt about it. I'll also go ahead and say it right now. I snooped. I went to his job and began searching for her. I'd been there many times before, so security didn't even look at me. I discovered her and now I'm sorry I did. She embodies all that I am not. She is tall, with large blonde hair, and she is stunning. As if my self-esteem wasn't already in shambles, this effectively stuck a fork in it. I never said anything to her and never told him I'd seen her. But the notion of her and him working together every day was driving me insane. I know how much he loves Zex, and I'm sure if she's really accessible to him, he'll go back for seconds. But this brings me to another point in my update. I honestly feel he is very wounded emotionally as a result of what he has done. He enjoys Zex but is also quite self-conscious about it, if that makes sense. He has informed me on many occasions that he thinks he has betrayed not just me, but also himself. By doing this, he said that the whole experience was strange to him at first, but eventually unpleasant to him, since he stated that simply going through the act without any emotional attachments to the act was disconcerting for him, and that he didn't really like it. I'm calling BS on this, by the way. I've seen her, he doesn't know, and I can assure you he'd like it. I've unloaded on him a few times, maybe harshly on a few of occasions, but one night I got so angry that I hit him. I asked him to forgive me right away because I knew what I was doing was wrong. He has never screamed or even raised his voice at me. However, his whole outburst revealed that he actually feels deceived. Unfortunately, he recalls the weekend of my adultery in great detail, since he had invited me to a family gathering with him, and I had already planned to go to my sister's, so I couldn't. He put two and two together and concluded that I was experiencing Zex when he was unhappy and begged me to be with him. Basically, we both injured each other horribly, but we still want to be together, so we'll attempt to make this work. I also questioned him why he did what he did. Well, honestly, I've asked him multiple times, and he is certain that he did it to relieve his own agony. He maintained it wasn't done to spite me or to get even, but he won't deny that he did contemplate it somewhere along the route. The most recent development is that he has informed me that he will be leaving his job. He said that he doesn't feel good heading into work and seeing her, both of them pretending as if nothing occurred. I didn't ask him to do anything, and he's still unaware that I've seen her. To be honest, I'm relieved about that aspect. Is it possible that he did it to spite me? Yes, I believe there is some of that in there. But in talking with him, and we've spoken about it for hours, I get the impression that he believed it would make him feel better, but it didn't. He now feels compelled to cope with the agony of being a cheater on top of the agony of being cheated on. I'm much more emotional than he is, but having known him for so long, I can tell you that he's an emotional mess who is simply trying to deal in a different way than I am. I wish I could give you a more definite update or anything more delicious, but this is where we are. We are both hurting, we both want to keep trying, and we are both attempting to heal ourselves while also attempting to heal each other. Oh, I realized that was probably a bad idea, but I insisted on having him tested for STI, which he did, came back clean. I know that was embarrassing for him, but I felt I needed it for my own peace of mind. We also had sex for the first time since all of this happened last night. Very strong, not the normal love sentiments from either of us at first, but he ultimately stopped, and we returned to a more romantic condition shortly after. I suppose it's one day at a time. Update no 2 since my previous report. Things have gotten a lot better. We've had numerous long, honest talks, and we're both really determined to remaining together, and I can honestly say that we love one another. I honestly think he loves me, and I know I still do. I had to take a long, hard look at myself after my previous update since so many people were correctly chastising me for assaulting him. I have to agree with some comments that if the positions had been reversed, I would have assumed it was abuse. It was no different for me. I was *usive, and it's difficult for me to accept that. I sent him a 4-page letter in which I apologized profusely. I volunteered to go to the police station and give myself in, but he dismissed the idea as foolish. He said that he didn't even consider it since I barely touched him. That doesn't make it right. I was wrong, and I'm not going to make excuses for it. It is as improper for a woman to strike a man as it is for a man to strike a woman. So I apologized to him, and now I apologize to everyone who read it and was offended by it. You were correct to be outraged, and I sincerely apologize for my conduct. I let my emotions to carry me to places I should never have gone. It seems that my insurance will not cover our counseling, but I will pay my portion out of pocket. He plans to continue at his current position, but accept a transfer to another office across town. This is a smart compromise since he will retain his perks and seniority. He will, however, no longer work in the same building as she does. The only snag was that when we were discussing my indiscretion from years ago, he wanted to know who it was, and while I eventually persuaded him that I had no clue who he was or how to contact him, he became furious over me up with someone I didn't know. But it immediately faded, and he said that being outraged over it was stupid. He's doing better with the entire affair, and I'm doing my best as well. I'm not sure which is worse. In his opinion, having to make up what the other man looked like, or in my case, really knowing what she looks like, was a burden. To be honest, we haven't even spoken about it the last 2 nights, so I'm not sure whether this is good or bad. Anyway, I'm sorry there isn't anything particularly to report to you, but I believe we'll be okay with one other in the end, and we're both working very hard to make this work.